J. Lambert began his career in Fairfax County as a draftsman. 28 years later, he had spent a decade as the county's county executive. In the process, he was named the County Executive of the Year for the entire United States. It was Jay who found ways to ensure that the processes of local government supported the growth of the community, and the business community grew because Jay enabled it.
Fairfax County's evolution has come in 3 stages. One was, as Till said, the agrarian stage. 2 was the no-growth stage. And 3 was the reality stage. Now, when I say no growth, I mean there was no plans in the county. And back in about 1970, when those boards were elected, they felt very strongly that we didn't need to have any more people in the county. And the way you do that is you don't have roads, you don't have sewer, you don't have water. People can't come to the county. And the first move was to buy a piece of property that had all the appropriate situations to be developed, and they went out and bought it and stopped the development. And Till was involved in that to some extent, on the right side, I believe. But the 1966 to 1970 board in Fairfax County did the greatest damage in the following board than could have been done. And I've said this to people, and they say, well, you know, you don't know. I said, well, I was there. Because what they did, they methodically disassembled the transportation system, the planning system, and the overall governmental system for development. Disassembled it. It was in place. Washington Metropolitan Area had done a great study. Capital Planning had done one called Wedges and Corridors. There was a satellite cities concept plan and the county's transportation plan. We talk about a lot about the growth in the county. The reason that you don't have the satellite concept, there's one in the county, Reston, that's it. That's it. It's the only place you can really fundamentally live, work, etc. It was disassembled. You know. And they not only did that, they started taking away the rights of human beings as far as their property owned. And the strategy was no zoning was implemented. So that was a decision to deny, defer, or to refuse to hear development. Yeah. Till was very instrumental in a case that I won't bore you with, but it was the Almond Tract case. And during that case, a decision was made where at that time the county had 300 zoning cases, and they weren't acting on them. They were just parked. So again, disassembly. He won that case, and the judge said, and Till worked out with the county attorney, 20 cases a month. So what they did, the board in its infinite wisdom, they disregarded what the intent of the law was, and what they did was just deny 20 a month. And that got to be an issue. So you see, you were going through the no-growth, the NIMBYs, not in my backyard, or last man or woman in. Now, at that time, there wasn't any reason to have an economic development authority because you didn't have any decent sites to put it. And if you did, they'd stop the water, sewer, or the development. The first thing I remember about the Economic Development Authority was they were charged with, now this is the biggie, street names. Street names. Paul Lemarier, I believe was his name. Street namer. That was it. Street namer. It's not a bad job. You know, you can find some Maple Avenue. You know, everybody's got one. Now, the board also had a moratorium on sewers, and I've been very blessed all my life to know people like this, and the county executive, Mr. Massey, took me sort of under his wing. I was some fat kid that he saw and working on something like me. Now, when the downzoning kept going on and on, they came up with a new plan, the plus plan and this plan. And the lady wrote a book about it, and she says in there, during that time, Dr. McDonald and Mr. Lambert were excused from staff meetings because of our outspoken opinions regarding the economic impact of no roads, no sewer. I'm kind of proud of that. I got kicked out of the meetings. It's fine with me. The 1975 election was the true watershed of Fairfax County. Finally, the electorate came to the conclusion that taxes were still soaring and were going to have to be raised, and that the board was not in tune with the electorate. Now, Gene Packard was considered, the current chairman at that time, considered a shoo-in. In fact, Jack Garrity told me, God rest his soul, that he was out drinking beer because he knew he was going to lose anyway. Somebody called him on the phone and said, "You won." That was a hell of a shock to him. But he won, and he brought 2 Republicans with him, one from Springfield and one from Mount Vernon. And then what happened is you had 2 members of the board at that time that weren't really anti-growth. That was Supervisor Panino and Supervisor Alexander. So all of a sudden, Jack had an unholy coalition. Now, if you've ever seen the movie, I don't remember what it is, where the guy wakes up and said, "Okay, now I'm president. What do I do next?" That's Jack. Now, I was, during that time frame, I was running a bunch of odd things in the county. I was called the Director of General Services. I was running police, fire, purchasing, all the stuff that, maintenance, real neat stuff. And so the board in November, December time frame made it known to the county manager at that time that he was no longer welcome, nor his assistants. And they took that to heart and left. So when it ended up, I was the last guy on the 11th floor with a bunch of wonderful lady secretaries and myself. And this doesn't feel good. I'm 35 years old. So they called me down, this was before the Freedom of Information Act was actually enforced. So they called me down to the Springfield Fire Station, the governing body, and says, starting Monday, you're going to be acting county executive. I said, well, sounds okay. I was scared. Terrified. I told the board, I said, we've got some real problems here. Staff morale's terrible. Budget's in terrible condition because the Packard board had took a big slice for a tax decrease coming into that time, trying to get reelected. And I'm not really that good. So, I went out there whistling Bob Dylan's tune, "The Times They Are Changing." So, the staff were in terrible, terrible shape. I think that the reason Jack chose me or promoted me or worked to promote me was that nobody liked Jack on the board. A lot of people didn't like Jack. That's the wrong term. They didn't get along well with him. Jack would say things that would in some instances be out of place in a normal decorum, many of which I will not say today. But Jack was on a mission, and he was smart enough to have that one thing that we all should have when we're dealing with other people and with our lives. Learn something from somebody else. And you had Till, who I'd known for some time. Earl was a newcomer on the block. Now, Earl was right. Earl never figured out we were in occupied Virginia. He never could come to that conclusion. I used to go to Richmond every year for the General Assembly. I'll tell you 2 stories. First time you saw going down 95 that you're entering Virginia was at the rest station on Fredericksburg. We were in occupied Virginia. I went to dinner down there one night. And I'm a native Virginian. My uncle was Dean of Women Marist, so I got limited credentials. And she said, "How far you drive to work?" I said, "I don't know, about 15 minutes." She said, "You're from Northern Virginia?" I said, "Why is that?" She said, "Down here we say how many miles it is, not how many minutes." I said, "Well, I'll take it under consideration." Now, I think what's important to know is that Fairfax County had the 75 to 1990. I was acting county executive for 6 of those years and then another 10 years. They offered me the job and I turned it down. And then they fired the fellow they brought in. And here I was again up there. And they said, Joe Alexander came in and said, "Jay, you're going to have to take it because we're going to do this nationwide search and we're going to find you on the 11th floor. But it's going to take us a year to do it, but we're still going to find you. So, and by the way, you're only going to get paid for one of those jobs, so you get to do 2 of them. You can be a deputy and a county executive at the same time." Now, that didn't add up too well. So it was a brilliant time, 1980, things going to hell. I sell my home, I tried to sell my home. I moved down here. First year I remember working for the government, that worked in my life that I didn't save any money. I lost money the first year taking the job. Another brilliant move on my part. But as it was, one of the things I did, and I think hopefully they would attest to it, I knew I was scared, and I knew we were going to have to do something about taxes. And I said, boy, and I told the board, I said, the budget's in shambles. Staff morale is terrible. The transportation people are beat down so bad. The planning staff doesn't know which way to go. There is no economic development authority. And I could go on and on and on. I said, we're going to have to stabilize the staff before I can do anything. And I'm going to have to go out and meet with every member of the staff. I'm a big believer walking around and talking to people. I've probably got 2,000, 3,000 names on my Rolodex. Because you learn something, you can learn something from anybody. Might not be a good thing, but you can learn something from anybody. I talked to Till, I talked to Earl. Sid and I go back. Sid almost cost me my job one time, but I still love him. But I knew the county was going to go through a dramatic change, and I knew that I was not going to be able to deal with that without help of others and intelligent people. And they all came, and many more came to help me. And the big thing was, I knew Jack could be a great figurehead. So I had my plans laid out in January, and on January 26th of 1976, Jack had his first heart attack. That left me with no chairman of the board, a 35-year-old acting county executive, and the windows wouldn't open at the damn Massett building, so I couldn't jump out. So I said, we've got to do something here. And so the board, in its infinite wisdom, made two acting chairman of the board, Martha Panino and Joe Alexander. So that really worked well. So I had to advertise a $1 tax increase with the regular chairman of the board in Florida recuperating, but getting on the phone every day and calling me all sorts of names that I didn't feel they were complimentary. But we got through that. But what we did get through was and then we started working. We finally tried to get rid of the plans that were wrong. The Blue Ribbon Committee, in my humble opinion, was the second major thing, most important thing happened after the election. There were, I believe, 16 members of that. And I've been quoted somewhere saying that that was a milestone document, and it was an attitude adjustment, and the public couldn't find fault with it, and virtually all the recommendations were acted upon. And that was done quite well. And I have to say this, Earl did a great job. I was running the budget when Earl came in and asked for the first bunch of money. And then, pick me up, Earl. I think you all asked for a $300,000 increase. Something like that. And then you came back and asked to go to $500,000. And then Jack told me to put in $750,000. It was pretty much of an increase because we were going to go from not naming names. We didn't bring him along to do street names either. Now, the one thing then happened, we started meeting with people going out there. Now, one ad I wish you had here seen today. I have both of them framed. I gave them to Jerry. It shows the Capitol, Dulles Airport, with the Concorde flying out, and one other thing. What is the Washington Monument? Front, it was in the double-page ad, and it said, if you want to go to the seat of power, go to Fairfax County. I looked at that. Now, I caught hell on a lot of these things, so I looked at that thing. What did I just say was there? Dulles, the Capitol, Washington Monument. Ain't a damn one of those in Fairfax County. And that was the most successful ad we had. But Earl was right. The people would call in, and I'd get the calls. They're saying, what are we doing spending money in the Wall Street Journal? And, you know, it's always, you know, I always felt like a catcher on a javelin team. But what we've developed here, and in all due seriousness, is that there's been so many good people that have helped. We had a rotten human services system in Fairfax County. We aggregated it. There's a lot of people in Fairfax County aren't as fortunate as us here today. They need attention. The university has been a wonderful thing. I served 10 years on the University Foundation Board with some very, very bright people. We have tried to make this a better place for the future. We're not done. We're not done. But it's going to take, and Earl says something that I also believe on. Just look at us. I'm the youngest one here, and all of us on Social Security for a number of years. In fact, I'm supposed to get Earl and Till home early so they can have their Jell-O. I mean, none of us are going to be in Playgirl this month. We're dinosaurs. We've got to have the younger people and the younger businessmen get together and get up off their rear ends and do something for the county. I fear the same thing that Till and Earl talk about. We're not seeing leaders come forward. I knew Jerry when he had hair. And Alan too. But we don't have that on the educational system. And one thing that I want to say that's probably contrary to what a lot of people think. I don't think we're doing a good job with technical education in the county. There are a lot of children, young people could be doing things, and I'm working on several programs with that in another part of my life for medical technicians and things of that nature. The school system doesn't support it the way they should, and I've told the superintendent of schools that. People that know me, I usually talk too much and say very direct things. When you get old, you can get away with that. I'm worried about that. As far as economic development goes, you can't ask Jerry to do a miracle. We've got 30-some million square feet of vacant office space in Arlington, Fairfax, and Loudoun alone. I happen to be involved in a building down here, not owner or anything, but I'm on a bank board. And we're paying less for that bank board space than we paid 5 years ago because we didn't move to a new building. So the economics of Tyson still haven't been proven. I don't know what's going to happen in the region as an impact all these debates that are going on, this realistic television. I don't know what the hell's going on. I mean, nobody's talking about sequestration. That's going to have a big impact. It's about a week away. My friends down in the southern part of the state tell me, Norfolk Newport News, they're really taking the hammer. They laid off 30,000 last week. And we're sitting up here, and what do they ask people to debate? If you become president, what would you want the Secret Service to call you? Safe. I mean, that's it. Well, I've taken too much time. But I want you to know that, and I say this with all due sincerity, I was not as instrumental. these people really put forth the effort. I worked for the government. I was a hired hand. They did it on their own. They deserve all the credit. Plus, I'm the youngest one here. Thank you.